This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring defense attorney, Hidden Killers daily contributor, and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Motta.
Buster Murdaugh. Well, he's had it. He's sick of being accused of having anything to do with the death of Stephen Smith, and rightfully so. He's unfortunately the victim of his own family, of his father's wrongdoings, and everyone was looking for answers. Everyone was looking for some way to make this family even darker than it already is. But did some of these companies go too far in their documentaries? Joining me to discuss, Bob Motta, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries. He's suing. He is suing Warner Media, Netflix, and several others about this. The first reaction we've seen from many people is, oh, this will backfire. If he has nothing to hide, is it really going to backfire?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, like any time with a civil suit, what comes hand in hand with that are depositions. So like, that's the concept. Mm-hmm. That's always the concept. Like, I did my Gacy season. I've always been convinced that Mike Rossi was a co-conspirator, or that he was an accomplice of Gacy. He's still alive and well, and like people are like, oh man, Rossi's going to sue you. I'm like, well, good. Because then I get to depose him. Mm-hmm. Then I get to ask all the hard questions on a deposition, because the defense to libel and slander is truth. So, I'd have the opportunity to do that. And again, like Buster's claim here is not having anything to do with Paul and Maggie. It has everything to do with the fact that they were casting aspersions on him as having a hand in Stephen Smith's murder. Mm-hmm. So, I don't, based on what I've seen and heard about that case, I think that they've cleared Buster at this point. Mm-hmm. From what I remember reading recently, I thought that I had read that, but it was certainly slanderous, for a kid who's like really kind of gone through hell and back. It's like I always say, he couldn't control the fact that his father was a giant piece of shit.
No.
Like he was addicted to Oxy and stealing all his clients' money, and then was convicted of murdering his mother and his brother. Mm-hmm. Like that kid's a victim, man, and for them to pile it on the whole family, it's kind of similar to the Victoria Heuermann thing, where they're casting aspersions on the entire Murdaugh clan when, you've got the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Why do you have to make the entire family murderers as well? I don't know. So we'll see how that suit plays out. But, I think it's a fair lawsuit. I don't think it's frivolous.
Could this end up aiding in the investigation of the murder of Stephen Smith? Not to say that Buster has anything to do with it, but just depositions, talking to different people other than Buster, and getting more people to talk that otherwise maybe wouldn't be talking. Maybe that will go in a direction of finding truly who is behind it.
Yeah, it can't hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, because there's a lot more leeway given to civil attorneys in a deposition than, say, for instance, in a criminal investigation. Cops have rules. Mm-hmm. There's the old Constitution protects people from having to speak to cops if they don't want to. Depositions, it's a free for all. Mm-hmm. The attorneys can object to questions, and if the attorneys want to fight it out because they want the answer, they can certify the question. They can go in front of the judge and say, look, we need this answer to this question. And they objected to it. Typically, like in a civil deposition, if I found a question to be objectionable for various reasons and we objected to it, I would typically let my client answer it, unless it was something that was, so out of the ordinary that I was just like, nah, I'll let the judge figure this one out. Mm-hmm. But, my point being, the civil attorneys are going to have a lot more ability to question all kinds of areas that law enforcement may not have had the ability to do if he lawyered up. Like, he's not going to be able to lawyer up. And, the hope is that Buster can basically clear himself, at least in the minds of SLED, to the extent we're like, all right, like we're pretty satisfied here,
Mm-hmm.
that this kid didn't do this. And, and then they change course, and kind of move on. Because look, I always thought that that it was a very tenuous connection,
Mm-hmm.
that like why Buster would have theoretically, I guess they're saying ran him down in the middle of the road or dumped him, killed him somewhere else and dumped him. Like why? Because the kid was gay or something? Like, is that what weren't they saying something?
That's kind
like
of
that?
the accusations that have been.
Yeah, whatever the theory was like, or that Buster had a relationship, like all a bunch of like speculation that had no real bearing on whether or not thought that kid would have done anything like that. So, as far as I'm concerned, good for him. Like, let it play out in a court of law. Let's see where it all shakes down. And for the Smith family, I hope it does help. Yeah. I hope it gives some kind of like insight into something, if even just clearing Buster once and for all, where they feel like, look, all right, we feel like Buster answered a lot of questions here, a lot of questions that we hadn't, ever heard answers to. And now and we're satisfied with them. Let's look elsewhere. Let's try to find out who did this. You know what I mean? So, that's the hope.
Maybe some good will come out of this, and some real answers will be given, and we'll find the true killer.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial free,
so you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.